We've all heard the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child, but the thing that we often forget is that it also takes one to support the mother.
Well, speaking of the village, this is our podcast. I'm Nicole Harlow.
And I'm Dawn Thompson, and we're here to connect you with a village of support you need from pregnancy to parenting.
So come on this journey with us as we build your village one episode at a time. All right. Hello. We are here. My name is Nicole Harlow, joined by my awesome co-host, Dawn Thompson, and we are chatting with Shemika Whiteside. She's an MSSW and LCSW and the founder and executive director of Zora's Cradle. She is in Kentucky. So we're all over the country today. We got East Coast, West Coast, and Mid Coast present. And I'm really excited to share your story, Shemika. I'm not happy that I have to share, that we're sharing your story, and I wish there's a better outcome here, but I think it's really important for these stories to be told and for us to, do better as a society. So I would love for you to introduce yourself and we'll get started.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am Shemika Whiteside. I am based in Louisville, Kentucky, but I'm originally from Springfield, Illinois. I always make sure I say that because if I don't, my dad will be upset. It's like, you're not from there. I am a mother of a 16-year-old teenage son. If anyone's looking for one, let me know. Let me call. I bring the food, the backpack for him. And I am also the mother of a 10-year-old angel baby. Her name was Zora. She's no longer with us, but I try to make sure that I advocate for, other babies because of what happened with her. But I try to make sure I also include her in my mamahood. So 16-year-old and a 10-year-old angel baby. But I am the founder and executive director of Zora's Cradle. We are based in Louisville, Kentucky. We really specialize in perinatal mental health and community-based resources. I feel that there's a connection between how you feel as a mother in terms of mood disorders, and sometimes it's due to not really having what you need. So if I can bring those two together, that's what I like to do. And then I have a private practice. It is called Perinatal Princess, where I do support groups for pregnant and postpartum women. I'm really focusing on those that have experienced infertility and grief and loss. Besides that, in my free time, I am an avid traveler. I'm a foodie. I am a Golden Girls fan, and I am a board game trivia fanatic, but I'm very competitive, so please don't invite me because it gets ugly. It's really bad. I need to work on that.
And if my memory serves me, you make a mean caramel pie that I have yet to try.
Delicious. I am a dessert connoisseur. So I love making dessert for people and sometimes seeing what they like and then kind of jazzing up the recipe. And it's like, well, try this. So that's my thing. I just feel that there aren't desserts in the market that apply to every palate. For example, I really think that there should be a cookie that not only has macadamia nuts and like caramel, but toffee. Look at all those things need to be together. But I'll just make it myself. It's not out there. I'm very angry. But anywho, hello, everyone.
I love your spirit. And that was one of the first things that initially brought me, connected me with you, is just like your spirit in the sense of like lightness that surrounds you. And the work that you do is not that. It's kind of heavy stuff. And, as a lost mom, as an angel baby mom like that, I see many women out there like doing the work to support their cause. And it's, again, a heavy topic. So just having this light around you is really, really, beautiful to see. So I wanted to acknowledge that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So if you can just tell us about, Zora and your story with her. I think it's important, like I said, that we share these for others to hear. And if they're experiencing something different, maybe there's something they can take away that will help them in their journey.
Absolutely. So, as mentioned, I am not originally from Louisville, Kentucky. I am from Springfield, Illinois. I came to Louisville to go to grad school for my master's in social work. I heard that they had a great program. First of all, kudos to University of Louisville, go Cards. But I came to go to school, and shortly after graduation, I was pregnant. And at the time I had a 5-year-old. And I got a job, which was wonderful, doing, case management. That was very difficult because, as you know, people say they don't discriminate against pregnant women. Yes, they do. So people saw the belly and it's like, I can do the job and all the things. But it was like, oh, we're going to move on and look at someone else. But they're looking at my belly the entire time. So I found a great case management position. Less than a month, and actually being there was difficult because, I had to keep, leaving for doctor's appointments and things of that nature. But there was a day that I went to a doctor's appointment and things just weren't looking well. They said that there wasn't much amniotic fluid and they were trying to figure out what was going on. But the thing is, that was a new doctor because mind you, I transferred all the way here from Illinois, so I'm like, well, the last doctor didn't say that, it kind of explains a lot. I was feeling her hands a bit more and her legs, like really touching my skin. I just knew something was wrong. But maybe they told me, I want to say on a Monday. They told me that on a Monday. And then by Friday, things were still going wrong. I was going to the emergency room with triage, seeing what was going on. They kept sending me home. And I'm like, something is really wrong. I think that someone should look. They never looked. It was very much, we're going to use a little machine that checks the kicks. They're like, well, she's kicking, so she's fine. I'm not saying that I'm having issues with her kicking. I just feel like something is wrong. Like I can feel her fingernails. There's something wrong. Oh, nothing's wrong. They kept sending me home probably between Monday and Friday. They sent me home 3 times. They sent me something. They gave me some pills to help with contractions. And I'm like, I'm having contractions, which to me you should also be looking, but no one looked.
How many months pregnant were you?
I was 6 months pregnant at the time. So I'm like, I've had a full-term baby. I know something is wrong. Mm-hmm. I ended up being partnered with a woman who was a retired nurse. Her name was Rita D. And she said, well, you know what, I'll make sure to help you with your appointments and I'll go with you and so on and so forth. And she found me a new doctor. And I saw that new doctor right on Friday. I'm like, because I keep going to the emergency room and nothing's happening. But she expressed some concern. She goes, well, you know what? I'm going to make an appointment for you on Tuesday. I want you to come in and we're just going to come up with a whole game plan. Sure. But from Friday through, Monday, once again, I'm in the emergency room repeatedly. And Rita said, you know what? That Monday, which was June 14th, she goes, I'm going to go with you. I just want to see what's going on because this is odd. So she takes me before I went because I didn't think anything was wrong. I ate something. And I'm like, I'm just going to eat this, sandwich and baked potato. But she said, I'm going to park the car. You go in and I'll meet you inside of triage. Sure. I go inside and I'm like, hi, I'm here again. And it's like the people up front were already rolling their eyes. They kind of slapped the little kicking thing on my stomach. See, nothing's wrong. The baby is kicking. It's fine. But I still would like for someone to look at something. Honey, you're fine. You already have an appointment tomorrow. So I walked out and Rita, I don't even think Rita's 5 foot tall, retired, but she goes, where are you going? And I said, they told me nothing was wrong and they're sending me home again. And she goes, they told you nothing was wrong. And I haven't even, I parked a car. That doesn't sound right. So she storms in there and she's like, who's in charge? And interestingly enough, and I think the universe had this happening, it was my doctor. She was the doctor rounding in the emergency room. And she goes, go get her right now. And they go get her. And before the doctor comes in, they try to stop her and try to explain, oh, we've already checked her. She's fine. And Rita was like, no, they couldn't have checked her. They couldn't have done anything because I parked the car and it came in. And the doctor, who'd only known me for a few days, she goes, well, Shemika's been here this many times and I found her to be honest so far. So Shemika says something's wrong. Something must be wrong. I'm going to check. You know what? You might be dilated and maybe you're feeling something. So let's just at least check to see if she's dilated. And she had me lay back on a table and she, reached her hand in and she pulled her hand out very quickly. And I'm like, I didn't even feel you. Like, you're good. And she goes, you weren't going to feel me. The baby's legs are already out. And I'm like, oh my God. And she said, what's going to happen is going to happen very quickly. Is your family here? No, every single person is in Illinois. And she said, well, I'm going to hit a button. Everything's going to happen very quickly. And she hits this button and people just came from nowhere. And I was panicked. And it's like, my kid was at school. It's like, I have a kid at school. This can't be happening today. I can't call my family. I haven't given anyone numbers. But I had one person, of course, sign here and do this and shave in. And it was a lot. And they got me in there and they said because of what was happening, they had to kind of push her back in. And once they pushed her in, because she was in distress, they had to get her out. They had to do not a normal C-section, but a T-incision to get her out. Once they got her out, the first thing I thought, which is vain, but I'm like, does she have hair? I didn't want a bald baby. They were like, she has hair, she's fine. And she went to the NICU, and they had just built I think either updated or built that NICU. I know it was brand new, but they sent her there. For about 2 or 3 days, she was fine. And I just assumed I was going to go home and everything was okay. And then one day they had me come to the NICU, and they were doing CPR on her. And they're like, it's just because she was so little and they weren't ready, and, her lungs weren't developed. She ended up passing away. And I just kind of went to the room, and I was numb. I didn't tell my family. They were like, do you still need us to come down there? And I didn't want them to come. I'm just like, nope, I just, we'll get it figured out. My best friend came anyway, because, they're hard-headed. They don't listen.
That's what they do. That's what they should do. Yep.
And it was difficult to explain to my son. I don't think my son really realized that his sister had passed for a good year or so. They had clinical people trying to explain it to him, and they're like, your sister's in a better place because you're in the hospital. Like, no, she's with God. Aren't we all? He wasn't. He wasn't getting it. But I kept asking, like, so what happens now? And they were just like, well, you go home. Well, there's no therapist. I still had breast milk. I have, breast milk and no baby. I'm not doing well. We can give you some antidepressants. And it's like, I'm not from here, so I don't know where to go, what to look for support. And they just sent me home. And I was upset. I was more upset than I was sad, because I'm like, this doesn't sound right. You just sent me home. I buried my kid, and then I'm just supposed to move on with my life. It was hard, even after that, trying to find, like I said, what do I do with my breast milk? I did find somewhere, the milk bank in Indianapolis. I always give them kudos. They took my bereavement breast milk. But it was just me spending time like looking for resources. And at first, that was in 2014. And I said, well, it's because I'm not from here. I'm not from here. And that's why I can't find all the resources that I need. 2020 comes, and it's like, you know what? I live here. I have friends here. I know everyone. At this point, I'm a full-fledged social worker. I still can't find things. And the things that I do find, you meet with these people and no one knows they're there. And it's like, you know what? All the people doing this work, we're operating in silos, and people can't really get what they need as well. So 2020, I posted on Facebook, January 1st, I posted on Facebook that it is frustrating that people are looking for resources and can't find things. And I said, in 10 years, I'm going to build something where someone needs mental health resources. If they need breast milk, formula, diapers, wipes, I'm going to have it. If I don't have it, I know all these great people that have it. So I'm going to connect those people to it. And immediately someone in the comment section saw it and said that she worked for the Section 8 office, and they have Section 8 housing vouchers earmarked just for, homeless women that are pregnant and postpartum. Another person said, I can credential your Medicaid. It was just like a groundswell. And I'm like, no, I said somebody. It kind of happened overnight. And then I had a nonprofit, and we had, our office space, and we had diapers and wipes and, therapy, and really utilizing kind of I'm still a social worker, so a needs assessment. I see what people need, and then I provide the services that way. I think sometimes we're like, oh, well, we're all together, and research shows that people need this, so let's do this. And it's like, well, why aren't they showing up? Did you ask them what they needed? They may not even need that. This may not be something that applies to the area. A lot of my moms needed access to food, so we've recently started the process of getting a food pantry. But I'm just very much and also the milk bank where I donated breast milk, I've partnered with them now. So now, we get breast milk for the moms that we need. But I didn't want my child to die in vain, and, for this to happen to someone else. So whatever I can do to make sure that other people have a successful pregnancy. And if the pregnancy is not successful, I still get them what they need. I just want to be part of that movement and connected to anyone that's doing the same work.
I love that. Oh my gosh.
That's me.
Well, first, I'm so sorry about your daughter, and I'm so sorry that you were ignored for as long as you were. I wish that was not an unusual. I wish that it was an unusual story. So many women just aren't believed when they have intuition or, I feel like it's getting better, hopefully, but it's still pretty awful. And like, do you know if they could have, if they would have found it sooner, do you know that the outcome would have been different?
Oh, absolutely. One thing that bothers me the most is reading like the autopsy and reading some of the things that it was preventable all day long. Even when the doctor mentioned some of her concerns, the physician that saw me before her saw the things but didn't tell me. And I think that's frustrating as well. People just assume that you don't know what's going on, or I think that's frustrating as well. I've had those that I have, provided therapy with, and their concerns. And it's like, well, why is the doctor not saying it? Well, they didn't ask, or they didn't ask the question the right way, or we told their other provider, and the communication just isn't there, which is disheartening. But yeah, I think that's the part that bothers me reading. And I'm like, this really could have been preventable on so many levels.
What do you think is like the best part of what you do now?
I think the best part of what I'm doing now is really, one, it sounds cheesy, data collection. I know it, most people don't say that, but it is that. It's seeing that there's a problem and then collecting, personal experiences from moms and their stories and so on and so forth, and then coming up with a solution. And then, of course, applying that solution or whatever it is. And if it doesn't work, going back to the drawing board to see where we went wrong. But not just doing that, but also collaboratively doing that with the mothers. I don't want to be the agency like, we found this. It's like, when I say we, I mean everyone, the clients, the staff, the community partners, everyone is definitely involved. But I also love even just seeing the results. It sounds, so cheesy, but seeing someone that I'm thinking I'm doing something so small for, truly valuing what we're doing and speaking highly of our work. One of my favorite stories, we had a woman who gave birth January 10th, and I can never forget when the baby was born. It was my husband's birthday. We had partnered to get her a Section 8 housing voucher the month before, December of 2023. And we were just high-fiving, like, yes, we got this pregnant woman housing before, she gives birth. And she goes, so what do I do for furniture? Damn it. We didn't think so. It's like we were focused on getting her somewhere. She's off the street, but she doesn't have any furniture. So then going back to the drawing board and finding furniture for her. But January 9th comes and she goes, I have a problem. So I'm scheduled to be induced January 10th. I'm like, oh, congrats. That's my husband's birthday. And she goes, I don't have a ride to the hospital. And I don't think that we think of that as a problem. Like, well, what do you mean? Can't they send an ambulance I don't know how that works. Send an ambulance. And she goes, it's too late for me to get like Medicaid transportation because I had to let them know my partner was going to take me and now he has to work. So it's like, okay, this wasn't, I don't know what to do in this situation, So my husband said, I'll take her. So he drove her to the hospital on his birthday so she can give birth. And the funny thing, as well as, mind you, we had ordered furniture for her. They delivered it. They were delivering on the 10th. So while he's taking her out the door, they were coming in with the furniture. Like, didn't you get our message? She called her aunt. It was a mess. We will never forget that day. But to know that this baby is happy and healthy and she's here and we got mama, stability and all the other resources afterwards she needs. I just love her story, and I love, sharing what happened. But yeah, for as long as I live, we will never forget when that baby was born because it was
I bet. How many people do you guys service typically, like in a month or whatever?
I always do it annually because some months it's like everyone and their mother shows up, and then other months it's like nobody, everybody's good. We don't see very many people when it's cold, which I understand. If we do see them, it's virtually. But last year we served 210 families.
Oh, I love that so much. Oh man, what awesome work! I mean, what I hate is that it's necessary.
Right.
Right. Like, let's talk about that and how few people and few cities. Can you help people outside of your city? Or is it just has to be local?
I do. I'm licensed in Indiana and in Kentucky. Where Louisville's located, like Indiana's right across the bridge. So people will come and, I'm not going to turn anyone away. I help people virtually, via most of the people I see via telehealth are in Kentucky, but they're not in Louisville. So we still try to connect them with other resources. I am a contractor for a great startup called Pomelo Care, and I do virtual therapy with them. But sometimes they'll send people to the nonprofit, and they're throughout the state. So we help everyone. I'm not going to turn someone away. I'm also very big on, when I say not turning someone away, I know sometimes people are like, when it comes to diapers and wipes and other supplies, it's like, you can only come once a month, or, you know, you have to make this income or whatever. I don't do things like that. Like if your baby stinks, I'm not gonna be like, your baby is pooping, but you know, you live in the wrong zip code. That's stupid. Give the people the diapers.
Yeah.
Or if
they're telling you they need it, right?
So to me, give it to them. And if you really can't do it for whatever restrictions, like give it to them, but connect them to where they need to go. I hate when people are just like, oh, we can't help you. I get that there are things that come in hand, but there's just something about having no transportation, breaking your neck to get somewhere, and then you get there and it's like, oh, you live like 2 blocks too far. You know, I see it's running down his legs, but I don't know what to talk.
Now, how do you get your funding? How are you funded?
A few different ways. So we bill Medicaid for the supportive services like case management and things of that nature. We've also received some local grants. And then one of our biggest supporters is Melinda Gates. Melinda Gates and More Philanthropy, they've come together. There's something called Pivotal Ventures, and they've given us funding as well. So it comes in weird ways. Interesting enough, it's interesting, but it's also disheartening. A majority of our funding does not come from Kentucky. It comes from people on the outside. So there's just something about people on the outside seeing what you're doing. But sometimes when you're in the city, it's kind of competitive. So it's like, you know, you're fighting all these other people, but someone somewhere else is like, this is wonderful. I'm like, oh, you can see it. See, you know, so but we're hoping to continue on, you know, not just with, you know, with the funding piece, but also finding different ways of ensuring that revenue keeps coming in. Medicaid is great. We're thankful for it, but it can be kind of slow and low. So
right. I was just going to ask that about how has that gone with the Medicaid funding part of it? Because a lot of times people, you know, can't keep functioning because it's so slow and so low.
Yes.
Yeah, that ultimately, if you were just relying on that, you would not be okay, probably.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me about, like, I guess one of the other things is you have probably learned a tremendous amount about the system, about what people are dealing with. I'd love to know, you know, what it is that you would say if a first-time pregnant mom is listening to this, right? And maybe she's not going to find her in the same situation in as far as like having a sick baby or a baby that passes, but like, what are some of the things that you've learned about the system and about what you do that you would like for people to understand?
One thing that I've learned is everyone doesn't have a village. I think people assume that as well. A lot of the people that I am serving are in the situation because they may have relocated or so on and so forth, and they don't have the people to support them. There's the assumption that, oh, when you go home, you know, mom or grandma are going to help you with this. And it's like, well, what if I do if I don't know anyone and I don't know what to do, you know, as well? I think that's one of the biggest things. And because they don't have people, then they don't reach out and they don't get the other supports. And then it just kind of spirals into something really, really bad, which is disheartening. And sometimes people are embarrassed to ask certain questions. I had a mother who was a teenager. She was on her own. She was 17 when she gave birth, but then she was about to turn 18 and said that she was trying to get an apartment by herself because she wanted to do it by herself. She applied online for a Social Security card and paid the $80, but they had not sent her the Social Security card. And it was, you don't have to pay for a Social Security card, you know, and she was like, well, she didn't know, so now it's gotten her. And then of course, hand over hand, you know, the informal village, you know, has to help her as well to get their Social Security card. But things like that, I think that there's the assumption that, you know, people go to the hospital, they have a baby, they go home and everything's great. And it's like, everyone doesn't have a village. And I think that we need to keep that in mind. I have mothers that I serve. They're like, I don't have childcare, but I have to work and renew here. My husband got this job here. He works third, so he can't really help me at night. So I'm up and I'm crying and, you know, I don't have anyone. But people, you know, sometimes people are like, oh, well, you know, call this person. Everyone doesn't have a village.
Right. Or like when I talk about it, it's like I was young when I had my first kid and my mom had a full-time job.
Right.
You couldn't come and take care of me or help me with the baby, you know, and like, and even back then, you know, parental leave for my husband was not a thing. I mean, I think he went back to work like 2 days after the baby was born. Like I didn't have any support. Yeah. And there wasn't, and I don't even think that people think about it.
No.
They don't even think about it. They just think
Not
like,
what-
well, everybody's doing it, right? They just send you home with the, like, you've never done this before, and we're sending you home with your equally inexperienced partner, and good luck.
Not only do they send you home, I hate this part too. I hate when people just give a list of resources, because when I had my son, when I gave birth to my son is 16, and I gave birth to him in February of 2008. When I was giving birth, I had the flu. So I went home with the flu and with the baby that had the flu as well. I didn't feel well, and they were like, call this number for, the lactation person to come in there. I didn't feel well. And it's like, no one is, everyone went back to work. People were there for 2 days to help, but everyone went back to work. And it's like, I have a village, but my village, they had to go back to where they had
They're
to
busy,
go.
right?
And to follow up at my 6-week appointment, which is something I'm still also angry about, even though I have a living child with that one. I went to my 6-week checkup, and they were not very friendly. It's like, well, why didn't you call this person, that person, I don't have anyone. This child is sleeping and I am sick. I can't, it would be nice if, and there's a huge influx of community health workers and case managers, that are really popping up with insurance companies. I think they're wonderful. And I think we need more of those. Someone that's checking up on you. If they need to come to the house to make sure, can I make the phone call for you? And someone comes.
Right.
The assumption that mama's going to go home, push out this watermelon-sized baby, and then make all these calls, it's not going to happen.
No. Sleep deprivation, your brain isn't functioning properly, you're probably not eating enough food, you're not drinking enough water, and then people just expect you to function at a normal, typical level from a brain capacity standpoint, and it's just not realistic, not to mention the hormonal shifts that are happening. But I think that there was a point I was thinking of making, and now it's gone. So never mind. We'll just keep going.
Come back to us.
I hate when that happens. Dang it. But anyways, I mean, I think that people just don't even recognize how much women need help. Oh, I remember the point I was going to make. Medi-Cal here in California has actually just increased their payouts to doulas significantly. They are now doing $3,600.
Oh, I love that.
Do you know why? Because they have added 8 postpartum visits to all doulas.
I love that.
Yes. And so what they're testing out essentially is that they can get doulas who can be visiting or even just virtually chatting with pregnant women regularly after they've had a baby. And it's cheaper than having a home health person or a nurse, right? It's less expensive. So they're really testing it out as a program, as like that doulas can fill that home health visit for women. So
California, big kudos to California. I love
that. Yeah, I mean, I think it could be really good. But the problem that we see, though, of course, that we were just talking about, is Medicaid and Medi-Cal are very slow to pay. And so whether or not companies can accept those funds and be sustainable is questionable. Like, we just had a birth center here in San Diego that's been open for 35 plus years, and they just had to close down. And their biggest reason was because obviously the cost of everything is going up, but Medi-Cal is so poorly paying, and so many of their clients were Medi-Cal patients that it drove them out of business. They could not keep their doors open because they couldn't afford it. So it's like there's this catch-22 of like, woohoo, they're paying so much, but will they pay? And how often are they paying? And are they paying frequently enough? And because what they know is that doulas are reducing, people are getting back to work sooner. Yes. They're reducing their risk of C-section. They're reducing their risk of postpartum depression, all of these things. And so therefore it saves the insurance company money in the long run. That's why it's so attractive. But if they're not paying appropriately or quickly enough, that's like, it kind of defeats the purpose. But it's still progress in my mind.
Yes. I love that. Still walk in the right direction. I love that.
Totally. And ultimately it's why we started this podcast, speaking of the village, because it is, we want to be having this conversation about how pathetic it all is.
Yes.
And we were never meant to be raising our children this way.
No.
We were never meant to be in our homes by ourselves with our partner. And that's it.
Yes.
It's that we are pack animals. And we require a village. It should not be a luxury. We require a village, period.
That is the quote of the day. A village should not be a luxury.
It shouldn't be.
I
It
love
shouldn't
that.
be a luxury. It's what we all need. And like, if you just look back in history, everybody, when you had a baby in a village, everybody, all the women came.
Yes.
Right? They would bring food. They would come and clean your house. They would come and hold your baby while you showered and you slept. And they would come over and nurse your baby if you were having trouble nursing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you were having troubles, there was just somebody there that would come and nurse your baby. And maybe multiple women would come and nurse your baby. Like, there's so many things.
Yes.
Cooking you food.
I was going to say, and now a lot of that stuff is even, I don't want to say frowned upon, but like, oh, you're super crunchy. Oh, you're woo-woo. Oh, you're this, you're that. If like you want to have a home birth and you want to be surrounded and you want to stay in bed after and you want to have women come over. And like my daughter was nursed by my sisters, and not my biological sister, but a sister circle that is basically all birth workers and friends of birth workers. We used to get together once a month, and when she was born, I had a low supply, but like I would go there and 2 or 3 of them would be they were nursing their children, and I would just kind of like, hey, who wants her this time? Because I'm tapped out,
Yes.
And I would tell people that, and they'd be like, you let other people nurse your baby? I'm like, yeah, because
It was normal.
Right. It
was
so
normal at
the
one
most
time.
natural thing ever. And, I was like, I'd rather them nurse her than like having to supplement formula with a bunch of seed oils and crap in it. Like, what do you mean? And mind you, like she was born in 2022. So it was post-COVID, kind of getting back to normal. And I, was like, oh, there's antibodies, right? Like I never had COVID, but my friend who was also breastfeeding had it a couple times, and she had antibodies from it, and not from the jab, but from the actual virus. So like that was transmuted in her breast milk. So now my baby had antibodies from that. And then, it just any other disease too, right? Like just common colds and flus and things. Like our breast milk is so powerful. It has those antibodies. So like by kind of giving her a array of it, she got more antibodies for different things. And I will tell you, she's probably one of the healthiest children I've ever seen. I mean, she's 2.5, and I think she's never had an antibiotic in her life. Like, how cool is that, right? So, and she was also, my only child. I hate to say this, but like that never had formula. My son now, he was on donor milk for a decent amount of time, but it's a lot harder these days to find it than it was with my daughter for whatever reason. And all my friends who are breastfeeding with her are no longer breastfeeding. But he's on like the best of the best formula, but still it makes me sad.
Oh.
Yeah.
But anyway, village is so important. And like you said, it shouldn't be a luxury. And I feel like that's how it's viewed now. Like, oh, well, you need to pay for it, right? And then how many of us can't pay for it? But it's I think the biggest factor of how your experience goes.
Yes.
Right? What's your favorite story, Shemika? Like client story. What's the first one that comes to your mind?
My favorite client story of all time. I've got 3 of them. Let me see. Let me give. I hate that, like so many pop in your head. Let me give you. Because I told you the one with Rachel. Oh, I have another one. So I have a mother who was, well, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. So she was referred to us by a rehab program. It was like a halfway house type program. It was her first child. Not only was it her first child, it was just interesting. She came to me, she was referred to me because the agency that she was with was one of those places, which I'm not trying to frown upon them, but it was the ones where it's like, go and, do you really want to, keep your pregnancy? And it was one of the religious places, but they referred her to me. We spoke and she goes, so what are your thoughts? Are you saying that I should, keep the baby and give it up for adoption and what have you? I'm like, you do what you feel is best. But we really sat and we processed some of the factors that were in the way of keeping her, from keeping this child. Well, she ended up not only keeping the baby, it's the cutest baby, and she's just got like, like all these roles. She's just the cutest, fattest little baby. But it was just one of those situations where she was so, when I say panicked, I mean anxiety throughout the pregnancy, anxiety postpartum. We're just so concerned that she couldn't take care of this child at all. But and I also love, because a lot of the questions that she had were, I think that's another thing, I think the importance of the village, things that we assume people know, but she didn't know. I created a baby shower gift for her and I'm like, here you go. And she goes, well, this isn't for the baby. No, it's for you. And by the way, I don't ever give baby gifts to people ever invite me to baby showers. I give something for the mom. This day, people are you Christians, Mom? I am Shemika. I had a whole life before this kid came. I have a name, but got a gift for her. But she was so baffled that I put pads in there. And she was like, why are there pads in here? Because you're going to bleed for a while after you give birth. Well, that's not going to happen on the baby story. And I'm kind of hoping, and I say this as a joke and I'm kind of serious as well, doing some kind of a discussion with people, just the whole by the way thing, because I think there are things that people don't tell people are going to happen after you give birth.
Yeah.
I love that hospitals have people, come in and, they're like, oh, we're going to do the C-section. But I mean, like really going through every single piece of it. We're going to use these tools. You might feel some pulling. Like they tell you then, you might feel pulling. Like, wait, what? So there's no prep, but I just loved how excited, she called one day and was like, my baby's head is scaly and his face is all broken out. And that's the thing too. People don't show those pictures of the babies when they have like all the hormones and they're all ugly. Like you don't ever see this.
Yeah.
It's online. Like, oh, this baby's ugly. But they don't show this. But there's just a lot of, I just love her because she was just so green. And, I adore that story. But that baby is happy. It's healthy. I love her. And, she was like, well, I know things just from experience. I'm like, I've made mistakes as a mama. I even told her the story that I tell everyone when I gave birth to my son. He was about 3 weeks old and I was breastfeeding him. And it got to the point where you're waking up right when, it's time for him to feed. And this goes back to dating myself. The Preview Guide channel was on. But I remember looking at the Preview Guide channel and breastfeeding him and like watching to see what's coming on. I'm like, RoboCop, do I really want to watch that? I've seen it a million times. But I remember, I'm like, okay, well, he's done feeding. I'm going to reach over to get like a receiving blanket or a bib just to wipe his mouth. And I reached over and it's dark and I'm tired and it's 3 a.m. I reach over, I grab something, I'm wiping his face and he's like screaming bloody murder. I'm like, what's wrong with my baby? Keep wiping, he's still screaming. Babies are strong. And he like grabs my wrist, like stop. And I turned the lights on and I was wiping his face with the Velcro part of the bib.
Oh,
yeah. He claims he remembers. He doesn't remember, but it's that. And like every mom has made some sort of a mistake. There's no, even with the village, there's going to be a part that, experience that you just don't have, that you just have to learn. But I think a lot of moms are so anxious about messing up. It's like, go in there. These children are resilient. The baby will be fine. It's that piece of it. But yeah, I just love her story because she was so great. But yeah, I constantly do the whole, I've had several times have given people the baby shower gift of the pads. And I love why are you giving me these? I'm like, hospitals, please explain this to moms. Some of them are gonna bleed. Why are we not talking about this?
Right.
So I think it's really
important.
important. Yeah, it's super important to acknowledge too that like we don't need a lot of stuff. Right. Like so many moms are focused. Well, I don't have this and I don't have that and I don't have the swing and I don't have the crib and I don't have the newest blah, 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 blah. And I don't have the baby bottle warmer and the wipes and you don't need all of that stuff. Like, yes, it can help.
I didn't use.
Right. I was going to say, and you can find it hand me down usually like on excess, right? Like, especially nowadays on these Facebook groups, you can literally find anything and probably nice. Like, I will be the first to admit, like, I have gotten nicer stuff from those like buy nothing groups or like supporting mom groups that are giving away things than what I would have bought in, because if I had to spend my money, it would have been like the lower grade, but they were just giving it away. And I'm like, yeah, I'll take that, you know? And I think we focus so much on, do I have the checklist of items, right? But like realistically, baby needs a happy, healthy mommy, warm shelter, right? Which like, I don't even say clothes because my babies were like naked for the first week, chest like skin to skin, wrapped in blankets with me because I needed that like, you know, microbiome hormone flow for breastfeeding. And like, yes, diapers, okay, but you could even like a couple cloth diapers and throw them in the wash if you need be. But again, there's places like you and WIC and, you know, options for those necessities if you're really strapped in that capacity. But nothing is going to substitute just healthy, happy mom that I'm not talking about you're like singing from the freaking rooftops and like doing backflips happy, but like a stable, happy mom that is supported, right? In the ways she needs to be supported and told that she's doing a good job and not needing perfectionism standards and not being judged for every decision she made and in a safe space. And that's what we are lacking so much in this country.
Absolutely.
For sure. For sure. I mean, I think too that the lack of the village is so deep and it's so ingrained in our community that we and that we don't understand it, and then we're not able to help women to the extent that we need to. And like, how do we change that? You know, like it's like we're doing our part, right? Trying to do a podcast and doing all of our social media posts, but it feels so big sometimes. Do you feel that way, Shemika? Like, does it feel so big in your community?
I do. One of the things that, so even with the whole violence prevention piece of it, someone actually told me I was a violence prevention agency, and I'm like, I'm not, but because of the, like I said, because of the importance of the village, she said that a lot of times, you have women that, as we mentioned, may not have the basic necessities, and now you're with this partner or family member or whoever who is mistreating you, and you feel that in order to have, like I said, the warm blanket and the warm meal and what have you, you have to be in a situation that's not safe, which is impacting, your personal safety, your mental health, and all these things as well. But I think, like I said, the importance of a village and access to resources, is a form of violence prevention. It would be great if, we had access to all these people that were here to support us, because if something does go wrong, hey, let me call Nicole or let me call Don or whoever, I can go to their house, so help me, versus I don't have anyone, I can't pay for these supports, so now I'm in this situation and things are bleak and it's impacting the child, and it just becomes this terrible cycle, which is unfortunate. But the village is so important, important, because I'm sure that there's so many women right now who don't have access to one and are these in really, really sad situations. But I think time will tell as maternal health continues to rise to the top of importance on people's lives, especially politicians and all the great people that can make a change. These mamas will have the support. I mean, especially like I said, during the pandemic, I think that's a discussion that hasn't been had as well. All the moms that were at home with these babies with people who were not the nicest to them and weren't safe and can't go anywhere. And it's one thing to really not have a village, that you can't access because of the virus, but to not have one at all, virus or not, it's scary. And I don't think that anyone's will look into that or see that these mamas are okay even now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Shemika, speaking of the village, who besides someone like you in your like LCSW role,
Yes.
who would you say is the most crucial member of someone's village?
I think I know a lot of times people defer to, doulas, but I'm going to give a tied answer. I think that right now, prescribers, especially, perinatal psychiatry prescribers, and then also lactation consultants are also very big, especially with women of color. There are a lot of Black women who don't breastfeed, and, just BIPOC women in general, but especially Black women. But, speaking to a lot of them, it's one, there's the stigma of, and I've heard some things. I've heard from a lot of my refugee clients, breastfeeding is for poor people. I'm like, girl, you're poor. Surprise. I've heard it'll make your boobs sag. I've just heard some things, but I think it's, powerful to have someone that looks like you to actually be there and help with it. But it's, I tried it. I didn't understand it. I tried to go here. I just gave up, and like I said, there's nothing wrong with form. I just want to make sure I stress that. But I feel that for those who did want to breastfeed and didn't have the supports they needed and gave up, it's just heartbreaking to know that one person could have stepped in and helped. And the thing too, people didn't know that lactation people exist. I think that we're still very old school, and it's like, well, hey, the baby's just going to get on there and, clamp down and everything's going to be okay. But I think, just one of those, I think that they are so undervalued and we need to bring attention to them. But I think also prescribers, I've had women who have had some of the worst postpartum depression, anxiety I've seen. And I've even said, do you need someone to see if you need medication? And there's the shame in it. People will think I'm crazy,
Right.
Don't worry about them. You're here to do this for your baby. What's going to help best? For you, and just speak with them. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But at least, knowing that's an option, speaking to them. So I would say prescribers and lactation consultants are people in our village that we kind of, overlook sometimes, but they're very valuable and they're very needed.
I think that's an important note to make because I was one of them. Like I was terrified to go on medication just because I didn't understand what it was going to do. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like in my experience in life, it was, Xanax or something that like made me brain foggy and like tired and drowsy. And I'm like, how can I take something that will do that when I need to be a mom? Whereas like a lot of the prescriptions that are, treating PMADs are ones that may have some side effects, but not in the same capacity that a Xanax does or something like that. Right. So once like a medical professional like informed me of, okay, this is how it works, and like talked to me like I was a human being that understood and not just like pushed me off, then it was like, oh, okay, well, the commercials say I'm going to have suicidal thoughts and actions, and I'm already having those. So I don't want to go on this medication. So I'm going to prolong my suffering because of that. When it was actually explained to me, it was, oh, okay, well, okay, let's try it. And then ultimately it brought me to a neutral position where then I could actually start healing. So thank you for bringing that to light.
Thank you so much.
For sure. Well, Shemika, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story and telling us about the work that you're doing. Obviously critically important. And I'm so dang proud of what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And I know that we need a lot more people like you out there doing this everywhere. And hopefully there will be a time when we don't need it and the resources will be there. That would be amazing, right? Wouldn't it be great if we were just run out of our jobs, Shemika? It'd be the best thing ever.
Yes and no, because I have a really bad taco habit and I need to fund that. So.
I hear that. All right.
But thank you so much. And we'll definitely talk soon.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for joining us on Speaking of the Village. If you love today's episode, make sure to hit subscribe and share it with a friend.
And remember, you're not alone. We're here, we're listening, and we're all in this together, because in our village, no mom walks alone.